Morning everybody, and welcome to my little pottery. When I first started doing this video, I thought this is not going to take too long. It's not a massive subject, but it actually turned out to take a lot longer than I expected. So what I've done, I've split this over two videos. The first video covers the making of the moulds that I used to put the studs on. The second video covers mainly actually putting the studs on the pots. So I hope you enjoy watching them, and I hope you enjoy watching both videos. And one last thing, if you do feel like subscribing to my channel, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of the video. Thanks for your support. Bye. So this video is about studs and how I put studs on pots. I've had a love-hate relationship with studs for many years. I used to love seeing them on pots, but I used to hate putting them on pots because it always seemed to go wrong. And I decided that I needed to sort of settle down and work out how to do it properly. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to show you how I actually worked out how to do pots and actually learned how to enjoy doing studs on pots. We'll see how we get on. These are some of the dies I've made that create studs. These are made from extruded lengths of clay, and then different, get the focus on that, different things have been pushed in the end to try and get a nice rounded shape. One or two of these, that one, I don't know if you can see it, at the bottom has got a dimple. That leaves quite a nice effect on the pot. I'll show you how to use these in a short while. That one has got like a nipple on the end of it, which is also quite nice when you use it. That's just a plain standard one, but they come in varying sizes, as you can see. We've got the smaller ones. This is the die, get in focus. This is the die I used on this pot. I'll show you how to use these in a short while, and also I'll show you how I make them, which is more important. Right, so these are the studs that these tools make. I'm trying to get in so I can keep the focus. So you can see on the far left you've got one with a little dimple in it. That was made from a Sharpie pen lid that I pushed into it. The next one was another pen lid that's got a little dimple on the top, like a nipple effect. The next one is just a standard straightforward one, nothing fancy, and the last one is a tiny little one. And these are the tools that I used to make the little moulds. You can see they're just round-ended. So I don't know what they'd use these for. I suppose they could use them in the jewellery trade or whatever, but they're perfect for making these stamps. They come in various sizes. You've got larger ones. As you can see on that one, you've got smaller ones either end. This is an extruded piece of clay which I made using this gun. Just extrudes out the die at the end. You can see the die. This is slightly bigger than the die that I've got in there because it's just easier to see. So the first thing I need to do is I need to cut a flush end. I'm using a metal kidney for that, so I've got a nice flush start. You can see the end of that, it's nice and flush. And then I'm going to use this die to press a sort of mould into this. Right, the wrong way to do it is to not have it prepared and push it straight in, because all you'll do is you'll crack it like that. You don't want to do that, that's pretty useless. So what you need to do then is start gently. If you protect the coil with your fingers and just try and get yourself in the right position, find the centre and just gently work it in a little bit at a time, and hopefully this clay shouldn't crack. And you see it's starting to make an impression, so I'll just keep working at this nice and steadily. There we go, it's just starting to crack a little bit, so I'll just smooth it in and smooth it around. I don't really need to go much deeper than that, just a little bit further You see what I'm doing here? Get rid of them little cracks. And that should be deep enough to make a tool that'll give you a die. A little bit further. This clay might be a bit on the hard side for doing this job. You don't want it to be soft. You need it to have a little bit of resistance when you come to sort of push into it. But if it's too hard, it will just crack. Or, you get that? Right, so the last thing I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to shave. If you get too close, it'll not focus. I'm just going to shave a little bit of this outer part off. I just want to make that end bit just a little bit sort of narrower. And you can see that. Got a nice little tool. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten off one edge. I'll explain why I've done this later. It'll all become clear. This is like really a registration edge, but as I say, I will explain it later. So that really needs a little bit more refinement when it's a bit drier. So that is your tool. You can see that. Yeah. And better light. Well, that's much better light. You can see it's even better there. You can make these, as many of these as you want. I made these a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and they're still working fine. But it's always good to have like two, pretty much the same if you can. And then, because as you're using these things, they do get a little bit damp, and the clay can stick in them. And if you've got a sort of replacement or a backup, that's a lot better. I'll just finish flattening that off. I'll cut this end off that I messed up. And there you go. And tool. That's pretty usable. Right, we'll move on to the next bit. So today we're going to put some studs on this drum pod. What I want to do, I want to try and get these studs placed fairly accurately around this pot, so they're well spaced and they're vertical above each other. And this is the target I use. I just drew this out on the computer, printed it, and then laminated it so it's protected. But it's split off into 16 sections. So in each quarter of the pot you're going to get 4 studs. And the way I use this is I take the pot and I sit it on the target and I get it as centered as I can position, so that the holes can see that is now sat right in the middle of that target. Maybe a little bit over this way. Yeah, that's not too bad. I mean, luckily with these things you cut a hole in the bottom, and you can see the centre of the target there, and that helps you to sort of level these things up. Well, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to mark up where these are on the target. So if you follow the line of the target, just put a little mark all the way around the pot. This just shows you where your stud needs to sit. These are just like little registration marks. 16 of them is a lot when you're doing this. You feel like you're never going to get to the end. Right, we'll go to the end. Flip the pot. And you can now see the marks. See, that was right in between that foot. And it should be the same all the way around. Slight discrepancy there. I might remark this one. So this is the stud I'm going to use on this pot. As you can see, it's got a little dimple in the middle. And what that will do, I'm going to oxide this pot. I don't think I'm going to glaze it. I might glaze it, but I doubt it. I think it'll have oxides on it. And that little dimple in the middle will just catch the oxides and really sort of emphasise it. So that should look good around that pot. And this is the dye I'm going to use. So we'll see how we get on. What I do when I fill the mould is I take a little sausage of clay and I push it into the mould, tiny little bit of clay into the mould, make sure it's in position, and then I wipe it clean with my thumb. And I take quite a lot of that clay off. I don't really want this sort of spreading too much. So I wipe it clean, but I leave it a little bit proud. And then that gets moistened. I've always got a water pot next to me, and I find the little mark that I made. This die on the top has got a little flattened section. That flattened section always goes to the top, and it always goes to the rim, and it gives you like a register. You see, that sits that perfectly in that line. So now I can start going around the pot. I'm just going to work away steadily on this, and you can see what I'm doing. But every time I clean the mould up, I'm just running my finger around the top. Bit of moisture, make sure it's wet. Find the position again. Flat piece to the top, up against the rim. Find your position, press it on. Another stud, and we'll start to build up wind all the way around this pot. You can work quite quickly once you get moving. Notice I'm doing between the feet first, and then I'll move on. I just want to make sure that they're in a good position. Flat bit to the top. So if you can actually see what I'm doing, push it on. And now we'll go around the marks. There's a mark. You can see what I'm doing here. There you go, your studs. They're starting to build. You do get a little bit of a sort of flange around the studs, but you can clean that up if you want. But I don't really mind it. It's not hurting anything. And you can see how it's starting to build up. Now they're equally spaced and they're equally set between that band, which is what I want to do. Right, so I'm just going to speed up the next little while. I'll not talk, and I'll just get these studs on. You don't need to watch me put every one on in real time, so we'll just get on with it. So this is the last stud that's going on, and I'm going to complete this part of the pot. There you go. I'm quite pleased with them. They look alright. You can see they're in position, and they are all equally spaced as far as I can tell. And now we're going to start marking up the ring ones. It's exactly the same as the last one, just needs a little mark so that you know where to put the next stud. That is been lined up so it's directly below, or when I turn it over, above the other stud. So that's now marked up, ready to go. So it's the same procedure as before. Take your mould, fill it full of clay, bit of moisture, and again I'm using the flat part at the top of this mould, and I'm going to run that up on the rim, just on the rim. That rim, that very top bit, you see that puts that in, and it's directly above the one below it. So we should be able to work our way around the pot now. So I'll just back on doing that. I'll probably speed the video up. There you go. Last stud gone on. So this is now looking rather splendid with its studs. I've got two more to do. I'm going to do them with different sort of patterns on them, but following the similar sort of process that I've done here. That looks alright, quite pleased with that.